processor. A processor, or microprocessor, is a small chip that resides in computers and other electronic devices. Its basic job is to receive input and provide the appropriate output. While this may seem like a simple task, modern processors can handle trillions of calculations per second. CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. The CPU is the primary component of a computer that processes instructions. It runs the operating system and applications, constantly receiving input from the user or active software programs. It processes the data and produces output, which may be stored by an application or displayed on the screen. Difference between desktop processor and mobile processor. Desktop. The desktop processors. These tend to be a lot less limited when it comes to thermals, and aren't affected at all by battery life. Because of this, it makes them much more efficient when it comes to performance. They also tend to have higher stock and turbo speeds, more cache, and higher thermal design power. Mobile. A CPU chip designed for laptops, tablets, smartphones and other portable devices. Mobile processors use lower voltages and are designed to run cooler than the CPUs in desktop computers. They typically have more sleep modes that enable sections of the chip to be throttled down or turned off when not used. The most widely used mobile processors are ARM chips, and these smaller processors can be used for laptops but also for smartphones and the Internet of Things, IoT, devices too. Due to the nature of the devices and what they're used for, they tend to be designed more for efficiency rather than performance. Difference between desktop processor and mobile processor. The main difference between mobile CPU and desktop CPU is that the mobile CPU works with the reduced instruction set computing (RISC) system, but the desktop or computer CPU works with the complex instruction set computing (CISC) system. In this article, you will find other important differences between mobile processor and computer processor in detail explanation. So let's discuss mobile CPU vs desktop CPU. As I told before, the mobile CPU works with RISC, that means it is capable of executing fewer and simple instructions. On the other hand, the desktop CPU works with CISC, that means it is capable of executing very much and complex instructions. In the future, the mobile CPU or processors may be designed to work with CISC. The architecture of mobile CPU based on the ARM, Advanced RISC machine, whereas the architecture of desktop or computer CPU based on x86 or x64. The all-cores in mobile CPU works in different clock pulse, but the all-cores in desktop CPU works in same clock pulse. Mobile phone CPU has more general-purpose register inside it than the desktop CPU. Modern desktop processors have cache memory inside it. The present mobile processors do not have any cache memory inside it. In the future, the cache memory may be included with the mobile processor. There is no hyperthreading technology included in mobile CPU, but in the computer processor, the hyperthreading technology included. In the future, hyperthreading technology may be included in the mobile processor. As the mobile processor works with fewer instructions than computer processor, so it produces less heat. Mobile CPU consumes very less power, whereas the desktop CPU consumes more power. The mobile CPU is very smaller in size, whereas the desktop CPU larger in size than mobile CPU. The desktop CPU works with higher clock speed, whereas the mobile CPU works with smaller clock speed. A desktop version will have a higher speed processing and better cache than a mobile CPU, which will feature a reduced speed. Compare the two models below. The mobile Core i7 CPU has the same clock rate as the desktop i5 core. The desktop has twice more cores than the mobile Core i7 and a small improvement on the GPU clock rated speed. It means that desktop CPUs are more powerful. They can handle more devices, that's why they are designed for full-size PC or workstations, and due to their higher number of cores, computers with desktop CPU are usually more powerful but therefore generate more heat and have a bigger power consumption than PCs powered by mobile processors. Because computers with mobile CPUs generate little heating, it is easier to get a fanless design with smart passive cooling. Fanless computers using desktop CPU can also be cooled, but they will require a different design as more heat is generated. When we talk about a desktop CPU, we invariably are referring to that specific piece of hardware. A desktop CPU is the brain of the computer. While the smartphone CPU, the term processor more closely refers to the system on a chip, SoC, architecture. So, how are they different? Well, the SoC is a single chip roughly the same size as a desktop CPU, but it also houses a GPU, a graphics processing unit, another separate PC component, various radios, sensors, security layers, and device features. Manufacturers pack all of this into a single chip.